Hello and welcome to our special Africa Cup of Nations show here on France 24. Over the next 17 minutes, we'll be bringing you all the results from another packed day of AFCON action. It's joy for two teams through to the semi-finals as their dream lives on, despair for two others as their journey ends here. Well, I'm delighted to say that I'm joined in studio by sports journalist Thando Sibiya, and we'll be crossing live to our correspondent James Vasina, who's in Ivory Coast. Well, let's start with the latest. The Democratic Republic of the Congo are through to the semi-finals, beating Guinea 3-1. It was Guinea who took the lead through a Mohamed Bayo penalty 20 minutes in. Chancellor Mbemba equalised just 7 minutes later, the captain firing a thumping left-foot effort past a rooted keeper. A decisive moment came in the 65th minute when substitute Silas was fouled at the end of a long mazy run to earn a penalty, which Yohan Wissa duly converted. And a stunning Arthur Masuaku free kick sealed the victory in the closing stages to send his country to their first semi-final since 2015. Thando, let me bring you in straight away. Great win for Congo. They're 2 wins away from glory, what would seem an unlikely glory, just a few weeks away. Surely they've got to believe that they can win this now. They're only 2 victories away.
Yeah, definitely. I think considering how they started the tournament and seeing how they're growing throughout the tournament is definitely a testament to show that they're putting in the work, they're doing all the research, and they're on the upward trajectory. And so I do think that they stand a chance, but their next opponents are not going to be easy. You have either Mali or Ivory Coast, both who are equally strong teams. And I think that they're going to have to do a lot of work. But for now, just take it all in, accept the fact that you've made it through to the semi-finals and then do the preparations. But I think they're more than capable.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some fun scenes in the Congo tonight. Anyway, I want to talk about Guinea briefly. Firepower may be a problem. They only scored 4 goals in 5 games. They only could score from a penalty today. They didn't look too threatening. Did they lack a real goal scorer up front, or what was the main problem for them? How did you see it?
I think also big match temperament. Taking into consideration that Guinea is a side that hasn't made it past knockout stages since, I think, 1976. So already we start off with kudos to Coach Kaba Diawara, who's done something exceptional for this Guinean side. They can definitely go back to the drawing board and see where they can improve. I just think coming into this one, they were not very strong. They knew that they had very tough opponents in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And seeing how they performed in their previous game against Egypt, they could see that this is a very strong side with plenty of depth. And so I just think to take away from it is to say kudos to the team for making it this far. But you did see that there was no chemistry. I mean, they had internal squabbles. I think after that missed Wissa chance, you could see there was like a little back and forth between the goalkeeper and a player. And I think it's those kinds of things that you don't need at a match of this caliber. And so that's where you could see that they were found wanting. And as the opposition, if you pick up on small things like that, you know where to get into them. So you just tap into the mindset. And once you've gotten into that, you can just keep going up. And I think that's what DRC did. And look at the result.
Well, let's look at today's other quarterfinal. And Nigeria are into the Africa Cup of Nations semi-finals for a 15th time, beating Angola 1-0 in Abidjan. Ademola Lookman fired home the winner just before half-time, slotting home from a Moses Simon cutback. In truth, the Super Eagles dominated and could have had more. Victor Osimhen's header was chalked off for offside after a VAR check. James, I want to bring you on this. You were at the game. A tight scoreline in the end, but deserved for Nigeria, would you say?
Deserved, yes. Not the most thrilling of their games so far. They got that opportunity that they took, but just in general terms, of course, it wasn't anything like when we saw them play off against Cameroon, which was more high intensity. This time, it felt more like they were trying to drag things out, try and go slowly, try and tire out Angola at the beginning of the game. And maybe they were going to up the tempo a little bit after that. They did, and credit to Angola. Angola managed to hold on and didn't really fear out too much after that. But it was deserved. They were out on top, but they weren't shining quite as much as they were before. But in the end, Nigeria have done what Nigeria do, which is getting that goal, keeping a clean sheet once again. And that is, of course, what's extremely impressive about them in this tournament. Again, the defence has managed to hold through. Angola managing to find some spaces in that at sometimes, but in the end, they do leave once again without letting a single goal in. And that, of course, is what you need to be doing at this point in the tournament. You go on to win games just that way. And it isn't just the defence, though, that's been good for them. I think up front, of course, you've got Ademola Lookman, who's on the score sheet once again. He's kind of stealing a little bit of thunder up there from the attacking trio from Moses Simon, who did get the assist for him. But Victor Osimhen, when he thought that he'd scored that goal before he was ruled out offside, it felt as though, okay, maybe we've unlocked something at this point. He's been instrumental, there's no doubt about that, for their wins for Nigeria and everything that he's been doing. Maybe slightly less active today compared to in his game against Cameroon, but he's been extremely important. Yes, his name hasn't been on the score sheet quite as much as we would expect the African Player of the Year to, and as much as he would obviously want to. It did feel like something had been unlocked, and so there's a bit of disappointment from everyone in the stadium when, of course, he'd celebrated that and finding out that it was actually still not them, because his other goal is in the tournament is now starting to date back from quite far away. But just in general, I think I was quite impressed with Alex Iwobi today. Again, threading those balls through front, was doing pretty well. It's a wealth of talent they've got on the fields, and we've been saying it for a while now that they do have what it takes to go forward. They've got the belief as well to do it, and of course, today we'll have a listen to some of the players after the game who are pretty happy with what they have achieved and with what might be to come in just a bit.
Happy. I think we're very satisfied with qualifying now for the semi-final. I think the game wasn't as pretty as we wanted it to be, but the underlying situations that we qualified for the semi-final, that's what we wanted to do. You know, at this stage of the tournament, it doesn't really matter how you play as long as you win the games.
I mean, if you remain consistent and win all your games, that's the only way you can say you deserve this trophy. So we're one step closer, we remain humble and see how far we can go.
Well, there you go, said it from the players themselves there. They were still, even, I mean, if we look at things, kind of definitely stopping Angola from getting anywhere too far. There was, of course, a massive scare hitting that post. That would have changed the course of things drastically for the game. Maybe at that point they would have upped the tempo a little bit, but it was a slower game than against Cameroon. Of course, they were coming against Angola, who were until a few hours ago the lowest class, lowest FIFA team in the tournament now, against the highest, which is being the Super Eagles. So whether there was a little bit of that came into draw with it, I'm not too sure, but definitely they did manage to hold up and do again what they need and what they'll be wanting to do going forward.
Thando, let me go back to you on this one. As James mentioned, Nigeria now the highest ranked team left in the tournament, very much the heavyweights who are left. They're through to the final four. Before the tournament, they were kind of, people said that they weren't the Nigeria of old. They weren't going to go far in this tournament. Now they've found themselves in the final four. How do you rate their chances going forward?
I think now, seeing how they're performing, they can definitely do it. I think if you ask me again now, seeing that Senegal is out, who can win this tournament, I can say without a doubt Nigeria. What we saw today was some kind of total football, where you had, like Coach Jose Peseiro said actually in the press conference before the game, he said we're going to have 11 defenders and 11 attackers. And that's exactly what they did. They were playing end-to-end football, and it was just so entertaining to watch. There was a point you couldn't even tell a defender from an attacker because they were all just performing. Calvin Bassey was playing deep defense and then making those runs up to go and attack. It was exceptional football, and I think that they definitely can do it if they keep it up. It's going to require a lot of depth, considering also the conditions that they were playing under today, and they were able to give such a stellar performance. They were not dropping. They didn't look tired. Like I mentioned, Calvin Bassey he just kept going throughout the game. And I just think playing under 37 degrees and 95% humidity right next to the coast, and you can still do that and look like you haven't even broken a sweat at the end of the game, you don't want opponents like that. So I definitely think Nigeria can do it. Coach Jose Peseiro has a good side this time around. And I think also considering the fact that there's such an experienced side from all over the world, you have some players performing in some of the greater European leagues. You have Alexander Iwobi playing at Fulham. You have Osimhen playing with Napoli. You even have some players who are on the bench and are not even getting started who are playing in Serie A teams. So you can just see that this is a side that has depth, that has experience, that understands the game of football. And like I said, we are seeing some total football-esque kind of style of play here. And I just definitely think that if they can keep it up, they can do it.
Well, let's look ahead now to tomorrow's quarterfinals. Cape Verde will take on South Africa, with the island nation hoping to reach the last four for the first time in their history. Ivory Coast will be playing Mali after knocking out defending champion Senegal in the last 16. They're aiming to become the first host nation to lift the trophy since Egypt in 2006. And speaking ahead of the clash, interim coach MS Faye spoke about the importance of the group regaining confidence after what was a disastrous group stage.
After the drama against Equatorial Guinea, we had to give the group a bit of confidence. We had to get back into a good frame of mind. Given that I know the group, I was able to find the words and encouragement to give them a bit of strength back and make them want to do better, because what we'd done up until then wasn't worthy of Ivory Coast. So no, I just had the words to make them realize that they were very, very good players, and that if we became a very good team, we could eliminate any team.
Well, James, let me go to you first. A week is a long time in football. It wasn't long ago that this Ivory Coast side suffered a humiliating 4-0 defeat to Equatorial Guinea. They were written off on the brink of elimination now. They're 2 wins away from a final. What's the feeling like in the country at the moment? Do they very much believe that their side can lift the trophy?
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I mean, everything has changed. You know, a week ago, it was a completely different story. After that win, which was huge, of course, beating the defending champions, well, things have absolutely changed. Why wouldn't they? Because you were doing so poorly before that, and it was just, it dampened the moods. You know, it dampened the party here for the Africa Cup of Nations, for the host nation, whoever you support. Of course, if you're here and you are hosting the tournament, you want to get a result in there for the party, at least for the host, to be able to just feel something extra in that. Well, that had disappeared. It's come back without a doubt. They've forgotten about everything and forgiven about everything that went on before that, after beating what was a sensational match, an absolute sensational match against Senegal. So the belief is there again. Yaya Fofana, the goalkeeper, said just a little bit earlier that it wasn't any pressure that they were feeling from the fans, but actually this is what is motivating them. This is what is getting them playing again. And that's what we saw. We saw a transformed side. What exactly is going on behind the scenes, it's hard to know, considering that everything is a bit up in the air in terms of management and whatnot for them right now. And they'll be having to solve that after the tournament. But yes, basically to tell you, Leo, the hope is here. Of course, we do know, as we've now seen, that Nigeria are going through. That is obviously going to be the biggest threat. There's still quite a bit of journey to go before thinking of anything now. But for now, the focus is on tomorrow's match, which will be in Bouaké, where we'll be travelling to early tomorrow morning to catch all of that, because well, a lot of people will probably be on the road to try and get that and to ready to watch the game, which is going to be the biggest one for them so far.
Well, thank you very much, James Vasina, live from Abidjan, and good luck to him with his early morning alarm and setting off to Bouaké tomorrow for us. Well, let's finish by talking about that other quarter-final tomorrow. Bafana fresh dumping out favourites Morocco in the last 16 are taking on minnows Cape Verde, and Thando, as our resident South African. I have to say, I doubted you when you said that they really had a chance against Morocco. You very much proved me wrong. I won't doubt you this time. Bafana, they really must fancy their chances to get to their first semi-final since 2000. They might be considered favourites now, in fact. Yeah,
one of the favourites as well. I think one of the dark horses, if we can say that, because they just keep coming and stunning us with performances. After the 4-0 victory against Namibia, we were stunned, we were shocked, but it was also, a lot of people used the excuse that it's Namibia, so it works. Knocking out the tournament's favourites, who were able to then make it to the semi-finals of the World Cup. Now that was a stunner. I think also looking at players like McGuinn, who actually performed so brilliantly in that match, and then also looking at the role that Evidence Makgopa finally stepping up to that striker position. And then looking at some other players, there was Spepelo Stole, who's in the middle of the park. And I think he's also one of the players that you can look out for in the next game. He's a midfielder. And like I said before the Moroccan game as well, was that the chances are coming from the middle of the park. and then they're branching out into the attackers. So it's going out to Zwane, it's going out to Makgopa, it's going out to Tau, but it's created in the middle field. And so players like Uspepelo have that, they have that creativity, they have that, he's the anchor, he's got the lungs, so he plays both roles. So he can go up front and then he holds defensively as well. And so I do think that when you're taking those kinds of players into consideration, and so many more as well, then you can definitely see where South Africa gets the depth from. I do think that they're going to have a difficult one tomorrow against Cape Verde, because it's those kinds of teams that you can easily underestimate, and then you come into it with slightly less preparation. I watched a few interviews from South African journalists who've been following these players, even in their respective leagues, and then seeing them coming in, judging the selections and so on and so forth. And they've been saying that South Africa's been making it through, and I'll say this in Zulu, ngembobo yenaliti, which is basically the hole of the needle. It's very tiny. And so if you're squeezing through like that throughout the tournament, it becomes a little bit tricky, and you're going to have to become very clear on your intentions, very clear on your decision making, and become more clinical in those kinds of aspects where you're not only capitalizing from your opposition's mistakes, but you're actually coming clearly and forward. Because in that game against Morocco, that seemed like what they were doing, where they were playing a lot from behind and they weren't necessarily going clear and forward. And then every now and again seeing from mistakes from the Moroccan side, or just seeing those tiny spaces where they'll slip in, and then that's where they'll capitalize from. On the other side, it goes without saying that Coach Hugo Bruce is a very educated man, and he's a tactician, seeing what he did with Cameroon. So is this part of their game plan? We don't know. We'll see.
We'll have to wait and see, of course, and we'll be back tomorrow on set to react to a Bafana win or loss. Well, that's all we have time for this evening. Thank you to Thando Sibiya in the studio and James Vasina in Ivory Coast. And thank you for watching. Tune in at the same time tomorrow, 11 Paris time, for all the latest from the Africa Cup of Nations. Goodbye for now.